Yeah, so Watford have beaten Manchester United by 2-0 here at Old Trafford. Their first Premier League win at home all season. Gary, unfortunately for anyone associated with Watford, the story is going to be Manchester United after this game. But that does them a huge disservice, and what Nigel Pearson has managed to do in such a short space of time, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think the Watford players and staff will be that bothered about what the headlines are. They'll just be so delighted that they've got themselves 3 points today, and a hard-fought one. We talked about Nigel Pearson identifying that they needed to turn Vicarage Road into a fortress. To get 3 points against Manchester United is a massive boost, it really is. They've got games coming up now over the New Year period where they're playing teams in and around them. But I think all those teams down the bottom will look at that result now and think, damn it, didn't expect that.
Well, let's talk about Manchester United. That stat from Opta that came out after the game, one win in the last 17 games in which they've had more possession than their opposition. They have won 73% of the games in which they've had less of the ball than their opposition. So you can break down the numbers for us. Overall, it tells us that United really struggle to break teams down that are sitting behind the ball, and outside of the counter-attack they have nothing to their game. Is that fair?
Well, yeah, I think it is. I think ultimately you look at stats and they can support an argument either way. But you're never going to deny what you actually see visually in terms of when Manchester United play up against teams who are expansive, look to play and dominate possession, the athleticism, the dynamic, hard pace running that they've got in that front four is a great outlet for them. But as soon as they play up against a team, and you hear this vogue saying with a low block, which is ultimately just defending deep, they struggle. They haven't got the creativity that you normally associate with Manchester United. We talked about Lingard playing in the 10 area for Manchester United. 27 games now, that is. No goal, no assist. That's staggering, really, for a player who is playing in England's semi-final in the World Cup as well. So this is the problems you had. Mata comes on, gives them a little bit of that creativity. We know that his future is not here, or he's certainly not the future of Manchester United, but it's a huge concern. And I think so often now we're hearing so much spin coming out of Manchester United about this culture, the DNA being back. But Manchester United are judged on winning games in the Premier League, and they are just not winning enough.
And defensively, it's 13 Premier League games without a clean sheet. It's nearly 50 years since Manchester United have been this poor defensively. What did you see today as a centre half that illustrates why that is the case? You can't legislate for mistakes like the one De Gea made, but in general terms.
Well, the very fact that they can't keep the teams out is staggering, bearing in mind this back four's been assembled for a lot of money. I think Maguire's made a massive difference in terms of the physical presence he gives them back there, Wan-Bissaka as well. But take aside that horror mistake by De Gea to give Watford the first goal, which ultimately changed the whole complexion of the game, then look at that, how rash Wan-Bissaka was to give away that penalty when they're only one goal behind. You'd expect them to score, as Manchester United more often than not do. But they just panic. They don't seem to have that ability, that know-how to see games out, win games in difficult situations. And that would be the major concern, is that as much as you're talking about these young, gifted players, and I think if you play for Manchester United, you are technically gifted. But the standout way of measuring a Manchester United player is, can you consistently perform week in, week out? And too many of that group just do not do that.
Finally, on Manchester United, after the draws with Sheffield United and Aston Villa, there was a huge amount of pressure on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. That was added to by the sudden availability of Mauricio Pochettino. It was papered over by the wins over Man City and Tottenham. Where are they now? Because they've dropped points now against Watford and Everton at home. Suddenly they do not look like a side that are good enough to reach the top four. Any other top side would have sacked their manager by now, wouldn't they?
Well, they would have done, but this manager has a kudos attached to his playing career. He's an iconic figure there, and they've backed him so much in terms of giving him the job initially, and a lot of people would say in terms of the job that he'd done, reconnecting the club with the supporters after Mourinho was a magnificent job. So I always felt that it had to play out, that he would get his opportunity, because if he didn't and someone else came in, the fans would always be calling for him if there was ever a bump in the road. I think it's played its way out now. I genuinely think that Solskjaer's not at the stage of his management career that he should be in charge of a club like Manchester United. I think it's too big a job. And I think they're going to have questions will be asked now, because they are talking about backing him. We'll see now in the transfer window what they'll do, because as you quite rightly said, you feel they're only 2 free signings away from being back up there. Potentially they are, but what will the quality of them signings be? Will it be young players that they want to develop again, or will it be the finished article? It remains to be seen. But you're just looking at the stats now, and you know, this is Manchester United 8th in the Premier League going into Christmas. That's the lowest.
6 wins in 18.
That's the lowest position they've been since 1989. I mean, you can keep saying about he's Manchester United through and through, and you can keep telling me about the culture, the DNA of the club, and he understands everything. But in that table where the points are gathered, there's no points for culture, there's no points for DNA. It's all about winning, and that's Manchester United's philosophy.
Thanks, Gary.